For the next few months, I'm going to be covering 4 manga that really caught my attention this year. The Summer Hikaru Died by Mokomokaren, Claymore by Norihiro Nagi, After God by Eno Sumi, and then Full Night by Yasuda Kasumi. For this video, I'm talking about the latter due to its underappreciated presence online, despite including one of the most intriguing sci-fi dystopian narratives I've read in a while. The manga takes place during a desolate future where Earth is blanketed from the sun. A forever twilight clinging to humanity's happiness as the definition of day is replaced by eternal darkness. Now imagine longer nights, days where the sun doesn't reach or grasp, being the norm. That eerie silence darkness brings, the horrors it hides, and the safety blanket of visibility it eradicates, being your day-to-day experience. Symptoms of seasonal affective disorder would be far more frequent. Metabolisms would shift and slower, increasing nationwide hunger. Fatigue would be at an all-time high, and serotonin levels so low, the concept of universal depression a not-so-distant thought. The world of Full Night is bleak in all matters of the word. With resources soon dithering, hierarchical structures begin to fail and fracture. The distance between the rich and the poor, synonymously recognised as the government and its people, was pushed to the furthest edges of separation. It's through that tightly wound tension where main character Toshiro Kamiya found himself overworked and underpaid, surviving paycheck to paycheck with the worry that each new day could have been his last. He earned so little that the money needed for his mom's medication wasn't enough. Her deteriorating mental health a repercussion of the eternal darkness, in addition to the lack of care given to the underprivileged and deprived. Yet, even with all those troubles, the biggest concern regarding the lack of warmth and light was the dangerously decreasing oxygen levels consequently following the death of greenery. For this, there was a quote-unquote solution, as the government put it. With years of developing technology and experimentations, doctors were able to transform regular humans into plants, also known as the portmanteau transfloration. Once a human is consensually embedded with a specific plant seed, they are given an expectancy of 2 years to live before the transformation is finally complete. Once fully mutated, it is assumed they are close to brain dead, their physical body matching that of a plant, with the smallest indication of their previous human self decreasing as time goes on. This artificial operation returned oxygen levels to a normal rate, as thousands undertook the change, improving humanity's chance of survival. Despite the disturbing process description, the government phrased it positively, the encouraging nature being of 2 things. Only those who are fatally injured, terminally ill, or close to death in general may offer themselves over to transfloration, stopping people from self-harming into submission. And 2, for those who had chosen transfloration, as it is not a mandatory action, will receive extortionate reward money as compensation to spend during their last years of living. Like any government scheme in dystopian tales, transfloration is deceitfully honest. Being an abused teen begging for the chance at a normal life free of dread and mistreatment, Toshiro is understandably blinded by the seduction of reward money. The government presented the treatment as something completely consensual, that patients had chosen the path of transfloration of their own free will. But that is not really the case for those whose only option of monetary funding is transfloration. Given the corrupt socio-political pressures that supplement the oppressive climate leading many close to bankruptcy, dozens fall for the persuasion of sacrificing their lives for money and momentary happiness, even if transfloration is a slow, drawn-out death wish. It's manipulation at its finest, especially when promoted as a sacrifice for the greater good and younger generations' livelihoods. Narratively, it's through Toshiro's eyes that we bear witness to the genuine experiences of transfloration and the horrors the government failed to forewarn. For those who undergo the operation bear the weight of knowing their life has an awaiting deadline. The change to greenery is not instant, as many would hope, but so terrifyingly gradual in generating a constant unease. Throughout the story, Toshiro witnessed his body developing foliage. his sense of humanity being ripped away piece by piece, knowing his fate is predetermined and sealed as of his own choice. And this sense of fear is only heightened by Yasuda Kasumi's looser art style, akin to Tsubasa Yamaguchi's line work and Nagabe's appliance of contrast, that adapts the notion of anxiety so perfectly. The more stylized approach makes the repetitive glances of plants feel so eerie. They are a taunting reminder in every chapter, returning that sense of dread in Toshiro's stomach as they mockingly observe his every movement. Or perhaps more disturbingly, Toshiro stayed aware of the idea that each plant may be the last remnants of the human consciousness inside. The added glance of pity also reflected back of every person before him who also endured transfiguration. But Toshiro's life prior to the operation was one filled with desperation and depressive thoughts, explaining why wanting to experience mere scraps of happiness far outweighed the finality of signing a death wish. Yet, even so, his reward money was stolen from him anyway. With crime at an all-time high as a result of global disparity, watching him lose his transfiguration reward was dishearteningly ironic. Up until this point, between the intriguingly dark world-building and the vitriolic society it fabricated, I was all in regarding the manga's narrative introduction. So much of the story was well realised and brought to life in an organic way. It felt truly situated as a plot that could have veered in many directions, and I would have stayed on board. But within the second chapter came a revelation, a more subdued catalyst within the narrative's rhythm that gripped me further. With the consequences of an unfortunate decision hanging over Toshiro's shoulders, it was with a shockingly intrigued expression from childhood best friend Yomiko that solidified the next chapter of his life, to communicate with the Green. To make his life only increasingly abnormal, it is discovered that he can do what others during transfiguration cannot, to hear plants communicate and understand their botched language. This, of course, proved him to be an amazing asset for the government to take advantage of, and thicken the plot further. Toshiro's powers are unique in that they play upon the idealism of his downfall. Through the ability to connect with the reputed dead, it's another significant reminder of the horrific physical state all changes lead to. He hears their lingering consciousness, the murmurs of attempted speech, diminishing them as an echo of their past self. It's a constant flickering hint of what he will become, a continuous countdown with no pause button, but a finality of body horror. Toshiro watched in real time these subtle transitions of his body and what his fate entails. He slowly became one with nature, flowers building within and his final form flashing before the reader's eyes in a definitive manner. Transfiguration isn't a glorified process. One doesn't turn to the beauty of nature, but a horrific amalgamation of the human self being overgrown, a sense of karma for messing with the natural order of greenery. There's no proper memorial for those who change. Each identity so unrecognisable that family and friends are left with a deformed plant body that feels more like a souvenir. The person's true state is left to be remembered through fragments of memory only, as nature gives and takes on its own desires. I don't want to give too much of this series away, as it has some amazing twists thrown at you within the same speed as Chainsaw Man Part 1. Mangaka Kasumi Yasuda is completely unafraid to physically and mentally affect the main characters, delving into darker themes that makes the world seem more cruel, but far more authentic. I would warn against certain trigger warnings such as physical abuse, suicide and the like, as it won't be the lightest of reads for some. Full Night has an earnest way in showcasing the depths of survival instinct and desperation, conveying what a dreary world so obsolete of natural lighting can do to the most innocent of hearts. It's constantly filled with evocative imagery, strengthened by Yasuda's appliance of tempo shifting. They always allow room for a tonal beat to be highlighted, often stressed through the repetitive visuals comparable to increasing the frame rate of footage. To shift from selective shots that quickly move from one to the next, to pages dedicated to one shot, adjusted the focus towards character expression. Those pages emphasise the emotional baggage being carried, the silence and pace leaving room to accentuate moments of reflection, whilst reminding readers of the morbidity concerning such a dystopian setting. And eco-horror isn't something explored too often, especially within manga. It's a very underutilized subgenre depicting human fears of the natural world, as is shown in stories like Annihilation or The Last of Us. It'd be far too easy to label Mother Nature as the villain of each story. Instead, she's more of a omnipresent overseer, watching the long-term visitors of her land rot in greed and turmoil. Transfloration is oxymoronic in how it's valued, a victory for humankind, but a curse for the individual. Full Night portrayed botanical body horror not just at face value, but with the complicated reality of humanity's downfall. I'm not surprised the story has been recommended by the likes of Sui Ishida and Hideo Kojima. Its premise and execution delineates the breakdown of humanity's resolve, demonstrating why transfloration is seeked as a happy endgame for some and a nightmare to others. But no matter the rush of humanity's heedless survival instincts, Mother Nature will always prevail. Her eventual blooming after years of devastation, a mere reminder of her patience. Hey guys, thanks for watching to the end of the video. As always, I want to give a shout out to you guys, the viewers, and also to my patrons who continue to support me every single video. Full Night is a special one in that I actually hadn't heard of this manga prior, except for someone who recommended it to me on my Discord. Before that, I hadn't even heard of the manga, which is pretty weird because I genuinely think this has potential to be one of the next big manga that's talked about. I say it in my video, but it kind of reminds me of Chainsaw Man sometimes in its appeal, but it also has its own unique flair, if you will. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video nonetheless, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.